I'd like to begin by asking you to tell us something of the odyssey which led to the Last Poets, and also your personal odyssey as an artist and as a poet.
The Last Poets were born May 19th, 1968 in Harlem, New York, in a park called Mount Morris Park. At the time, it was called Mount Morris Park. It's been renamed to Marcus Garvey Park now. And it was Malcolm X's birthday celebration. Actually, our anniversary, our 30th year anniversary is coming up on May 19th. I was asked by David Nelson. David Nelson is known by many people as being the author of a poem entitled Die Nigger, which was misused by a group, once upon a time, group called NWA, Niggas with an Attitude. I guess that's one of the reasons why not together, because they misused the poem, and they were real niggas, unfortunately. The fact is that David Nelson was one of the people who actually helped started the group with me, along with a brother named Guyland Kane, whose son is Khalil Kane, who's been seen on quite a number of movies like Love Jones. And the three of us, when we came together, we didn't come together as the Last Poets. We came together as three poets just coming together collectively to say a message that would ring as one voice. And when we came together, it was like the park was crowded. There were a lot of people. This was the heated 60s. This was a time when revolution was in the air, but we knew we were going to change things. We weren't going to just sit back and sing "We Shall Overcome" and expect some changes to happen. We were going to kick the door down. We were going to break the leg that was standing on our necks. We were going to hurt somebody if we couldn't get the freedom that we felt we deserved and that we had to have. So the Last Poets we were like saying our message, even before we had the name, was to like say this is the last and final call for changes to take place in this society. And if changes don't take place and your head starts to roll, don't blame us, because we warned you. So this is it. So with that understanding of the poetry, and the first poems that were done in the Last Poets was "What is your thing, brother?" "What is your thing" was an expression that we used back in the days. The Isley Brothers kind of made it very popular with "It's your thing, do what you want to do." Well, we had, before they did "It's your thing," "What is your thing?" What is your political affiliation? What are you doing for the movement? What are you doing to change things in the society? What are you doing to help black people grow and develop and be stronger and wiser than we've been? And if you didn't have, so you had to be, I'm making bombs for the Panthers, or I'm making guns, or I'm doing something for the revolution. You know, it wasn't like I'm working for Dow Chemical. No, those kinds of things. That wasn't a thing that we were concerned with. And David Nelson had a poem entitled "Are you ready, black people? Are you ready to live? Are you ready to die? Are you ready to make the necessary sacrifices for the changes that we have to have in order to have a successful revolution?" And then Guyland Kane had a poem, a classic poem, "Niggas are untogether people." And it's really a riot, because now in this period of 2000, we have a lot of young people that have taken on that term, and they use it very loosely, and they use it very endearingly, like that's the first name that their mothers gave them when they were born. So we were trying to eradicate the whole concepts of niggers and niggerdoms, and we wanted to try to make it clear that we had to make a way for black folks to emerge and develop and grow. So the Last Poets were a group that was out to police our own neighborhood, straighten up our own act. We were primarily conscious and targeting on our people, and in doing that, we created a whole poetic ensemble. We named that, we had a place on 125th Street that we named the East Wind, and that was because our philosophy was coming primarily from the East. And then David read a poem by a brother named Karapetsi Kokasili, and the poem said, "When the moment hatches in time's womb, there will be no more art talk. The only sounds you will hear will be the spear point pivoted into the punctured marrow of the villain, and the timeless native sun dancing like crazy to retrieve rhythms of desire fading into memory. Therefore, we are the last poets of the world." That's what David Nelson added. So our name came from the fact that there was a whole revolutionary fervor all over the world. We gleaned our name from the other oppressive poets like Karapetsi Kokasili in South Africa, and other poets here like Gwendolyn Brooks, and with the circumstances that were happening in Harlem, came up with the Last Poets, and the rest, I guess, as they say, is history.
I once heard you say that the mission of the Last Poets is to redefine black people as a race to ourselves, and also to redefine black people as a race in the larger community.
Yeah, you know, that's so very key. You know, it's just like yesterday, I was with some kids, and they were watching a cartoon on the Cartoon Channel, and there were three little black girls. They were about 4 or 5, and they were watching this. This little girl was saying to this wizard, this character that was a wizard. The wizard said to her, "Well, what do you want to be? I can make you anything you want to be." She says, "I want to be a princess with long blonde hair." And I sat there and I said, "Wow, that's affecting those 4 little black girls watching this stupid cartoon." and they don't even realize that. They're just watching, and of course that the wishes of the character on TV become their wishes, and then they internalize that. And in some cases, even if they got long locks, they still have this image. So my whole thing with the poetry was that, you know, when instead of talking about there was a bowl of porridge on the table for Alice when she came home from school, there was some collard greens in the pot. You know, we want to make it clear that we've got some references, that we've got some images, that we've got some cultural nuances that need to be played, that need to be promoted, that need to be prompt. We don't need. It's like Kenny Anderson is a friend of my son's. They kind of grew up together, and he's a known basketball player, and he got a lot of money when he went out to Portland. He had a $56 million contract. And my brother-in-law went to visit him, and he said, you would not know that his house was his house if you didn't see the GQ flick of himself, of Kenny Anderson, when you walk in the door. He said he had little ballerinas all over the place and little swans and things. It could have been anybody's house. It could have been like, you know, Hedgeway Henning's house, anyone's house, not a black person's house. So the whole idea of our poetry, the whole idea of our existence is to exemplify ourselves, to enhance ourselves, and not be afraid of ourselves. Let's not be, like I heard recently, I think something about Mary J. Blige says now she has gotten used to her big feet and her big lips. She's learning how to appreciate herself. Well, that's wonderful. I just wish she could get used to wearing her natural hair, because we need to like see all of that. We need to see the real. We need the real us. We need to recognize that our beauty is something that we don't need to hide, and we need to recognize it's not ugliness, it is beauty. So that is the mission of the Last Poets, to redefine things. They said everything black is bad, and we say no, black is good. You know, everything, you know, anything that we do, it relates to us. I mean, how they've given us some definitions of ourselves being shiftless and lazy. How in the world can the people who work from can't see in the morning till can't see at night be shiftless and lazy? I mean, we built the country and still didn't get paid and didn't tear down the White House yet. You know, so it's interesting how we have bought definitions that are truly erroneous, and we've got to redefine those definitions if we really want to see a better day. So it's imperative that we change.
When I think of the 60s, I think of people like Malcolm X. I think of the Deacons of Defense. I think of SNCC. I think of CORE. I think of the Panthers.
Yeah.
I think of so many brothers and sisters who fought and struggled and died for us to have the opportunity to sit here. When I think of the Last Poets, they are significant and meaningful in my life because they articulated and embodied all of those struggles. When I think of what's happening now, in the year 2000, with the exception of somebody like, say, Al Sharpton, with the exception of Al Sharpton, I can think of very few people who have the tenacity and the clarity and the courage to wage the kind of protracted struggle that was waged in the 60s, and the struggle that brothers such as the Last Poets participated in.
Yeah.
Why do you think?
Well, it's not popular. You see, a lot of the things that were happening in the 60s was a movement, and it was set off by the media. The media was there, you know, all the time. Like Gil Noble talks about the fact that when the riots came, it got him a job because white folks were afraid to go into Newark, New Jersey, and check on what the damage was. And since he was a black man, he could easily walk around some black folks without getting his head bashed in. So he got a job that's lasted for 30 years, or more than 30 years, just because we decided to get angry and let people know that we're going to kick your butt. You know, we're tired of this. So there was a clear movement. And what the man did, when you got a movement, you got a bunch of angry black folks who, you know, at any moment they can blink their eye and this whole country can end up being just like covered in blood. And they say, well, let's throw some candy there. Let's throw some candy. Let's see. So they took, and then our creativity also helped a lot because in terms of them throwing candy, because they took out the music, all the music equipment, all the trumpets and saxophones and clarinets and stuff and violins out of the schools. Every school had a nice, healthy music department at one point. They killed that in the 70s. And so the kids said, well, we're not going to die. We're going to become musical instruments. So then the beatbox was born. Kids are walking around, a human being becomes an orchestra. So there are guys in them that could do things with their mouths that nobody could even imagine they could do with an instrument. So our creativity extended, but that became a clown show in some cases. It wasn't seen as another black piece of genius that should take us to a higher level and make us recognize the need for unity and standing up and being straight and respectful toward each other. It didn't give us none of that. It was fun and games. It was like, my man is a human beatbox. Check him out, check him out. And it became a game, it became a joke. So all of our stuff, and in the poetry, because a lot of it is rhyme, and a rhyme thing can can be a very fenced-in type of thing. Sometimes you can't really express your real inner feelings if you just caught up with trying to find another rhyme word to go with the previous one. So the rhyme concepts begin to usher in a different kind of dumbness to us because we're much more intelligent. You see, when we get to an understanding of what jazz, what John Coltrane did with that sax, and what Eric Dolphy did, and what Miles Davis did, when we get to understand what McCoy Tyner did, when we get to understand what Sarah Vaughan did with the wide range that she had, and how every female singer that came in America wanted to be like Ella Fitzgerald, when we can understand that, and those brothers and sisters that are caught up with hip-hop and rap can start listening to jazz and start incorporating some of those rhythms and some of those nuances into their work, we're going to see ourselves levitating. We're going to be able to move things without having to touch it with our hands because we will be working on another part of our brains that have been totally dormant for a long time. So the movement that was in existence for me that propelled me into a certain kind of consciousness is not there for my young brothers and sisters. But there are a lot of young brothers and sisters throughout this country that I've had the pleasure of meeting who are just as fired up as I am today and as I was then, who are looking for that kind of guidance. And I personally try to provide it as much as I can. But when we go, when the last poets are on the road, the people, 80% of the people who come to see us are young people. And they're coming in with albums that we did like 30 years ago. I said, where do you get that? Well, my mother or my grandmother, and she said she wants you to autograph it with her name on it. But I said, well, I autograph it with her name on it, but I'm going to put your name on it because you brought it. You know, she said, well, she didn't want to come because she didn't want to be around the crowd because she was going to be a young crowd. I said, well, that's perfect. But the fact is, I'm glad that that a lot of young people have given us an ear because they want to know how fiery were the 60s. Was that some fake flames or were y'all really burning it up? No, we were burning it up. And the same kind of energy, the same kind of madness, the same kind of cop brutality that existed for all the brothers like Clifford Glover that exists now, nothing has changed. And a lot of young people want to like stand up and be recognized that they're about ready for change as well. So I think there's going to be a serious movement. I think it's going to be a different kind of movement. And I don't think we have to look at one guy and say, well, he rung the bell, we better follow. I think that there are going to be pockets of people who are going to just do things that are necessary to bring about the change we need.
You know, I was sitting in Mount Morris Park 2 nights ago, and I was having a rather heated argument with a brother. He felt that black people who did not embrace America should just leave. He felt that we were just complainers. This was Brooks Brothers.
Yeah.
You know, very intelligent brother, very articulate.
Yes, a real muck-muck.
I couldn't get him to see, because I made the statement that black people collectively are worse off now than we were, say, 40 years ago. And he just couldn't believe that.
Right.
Would you concur with that assessment? And
you know, it's about the toys, man. I mean, they've made more toys more plentiful to a lot of people, and a lot of folks can go without very much credit buy a car. You know, you can have they'll send you a credit card in the mail. You know, maybe you get some free miles to fly someplace. So there's all these little toys and little like candy canes that they just kind of dangle in front of your face, and a lot of us go for it. But the substance of our lives and what's happening with us as a people, and the actual happiness that we think we will even get from having more money, more things, all of this is missing, and a lot of us don't even understand that. A lot of us don't recognize that we are volunteering into slavery. A lot of us don't realize that if I'm making $100,000 and I'm afraid to go into the community with my ride because I think that the brothers in the community are going to damage my ride, then I'm not really making $100,000. I'm just getting some money to turn over to them because I can't even feel protection and feel comfortable in the place where my people are, and I should feel that. I should not fear. There should be no fear. You know, when one of us are hurt and wounded, we seem to attack others, and it's going to be a natural thing. So when one of us feels like we've arrived at a level where I can do something, we got to come back. We've got to be able to give something back to the community. That's very key. If every single basketball player and black football player, black basketball player, black baseball player who has made money in America would just go back to his hood and do something serious, we wouldn't see a lot of trouble that we see in the neighborhood. Crack would not have a home in a lot of these neighborhoods because there would be people who would take the stock from the situation that they left and realize that they need to invest in some of those black genius children that are being neglected now. And a lot of that's not happening. A lot of us don't see fit. A lot of us get the money and we run. We want to leave the neighborhood. We want to leave everything. We want to go someplace. Like for example, there's this story in Ebony magazine, and some people probably think it's real fly. I mean, I think it's stupid. Tina Turner is over on the French Riviera with this big, gorgeous mansion and her white boy toy. She's arrived at 60 years old. She's just the queen of the hop. Queen of what hop? I mean, what? That's not even a bunny hop. That's ridiculous for her to be over there where her music is saturated in the soul and the whole understanding of blackness here. This is where her seasoning comes from. This is where she's at. And I mean, for Tina to dismiss herself and live in France and to be living so-called in a world that is just like maybe to some black kid in the ghetto, this is a dream. I would do the same thing if I had her money. And it's sad because our places where we live should become paradises. We need to make our community a place that we love and that we respect and that we show pride in, and looks good, smells good, feels good, tastes good, shouldn't be a nasty place. And that's what we've got to get to. Until that happens, all of these characters that talk about going someplace or complaining a lot, those folks have bought the lie. And when you buy the lie, you will not see the truth.
Are you with us?
Yeah.
Okay. The whole issue of police brutality is something that's always confronted us as a people. When I think about the 60s, same kinds of things that you were talking about in the albums that I heard, the same issues that are relevant today. We think of Doris Man. We think of the myriad brothers who've just lost their lives and been abused and misused and continue to be abused and misused. Absent the Panthers and absent the Deacons of Defense, absent those brothers who were willing to put their lives on the line, absent people such as Asada Sakua, what can we do to try and confront this beast that continues to try and pounce on us?
I spend a lot of time talking with young people all the time in schools and juvenile detention centers, the boot camp situations that they have now to supposedly straighten our young men out. The same, and sometimes I'm in Rikers Island, and the message is the same. We have really got to learn how to love each other. That is key. We've really got to do that. We've really got to start trying to get past some of these crazy differences. We spend so much time trying to pick each other apart and player hating each other until we're getting totally wiped out by the game. We don't recognize that as long as there's disunity within our ranks, that somebody is going to capitalize on it. The whole concept of divide and conquer is working. And when we got folks going against each other because somebody is light-skinned, somebody is dark, somebody got short hair, somebody got long hair, somebody got curly hair, somebody got straight hair, I mean, it gets to be silly. We have these silly reasons to dislike each other. I mean, we got this thing, of course, having Dominicans and Puerto Ricans and all this, and that's silly because they're just some African people that just happen to be speaking Spanish. You got some African people that speak French. You got some African people speaking Portuguese. We have a commonality that needs to be recognized, and we need to stop with this madness of the tribal thing. We can't get rid of it totally, but we don't need to hate each other with it. I recognize that some people from South Carolina love other people from South Carolina, and they're not crazy about people from North Carolina, but they ain't got to hate them. We got to be able to get along and really recognize that our strength comes in our unity, and that if we really started caring about each other, white folks would think of 50 million times before they raise a gun or even think about shooting us, because they know if you raise a gun to shoot one black person, you're going to get the whole world down on you. Now this city has got a handful of Jews, contrary to what people think. The way the powers that be put it, you would think that the city is just the majority of the folks in New York City are Jewish. The minority of the folks in New York City are Jewish. But they got the majority of power because they stick together. They got white skin privilege too, but they stick together. They work together. If somebody does something in their community that they don't like, they go busting into the precinct, 100, 1,000 strong. Nobody gets arrested. File cabinets get turned over. The captain gets chewed out. You working for me, captain. I ain't working for you. You do what I say do. We're paying taxes here. Black people to think about walking to the precinct, we get blown away on the way. I mean, it just because we don't have that understanding that we haven't created. Only time we create that kind of unity is for a party, or maybe for the Eastern Parkway parade or something. I mean, if there's a party, if there's some music going on, yeah, you might get us together. But for some political reasons, I mean, even the Amadou Diallo thing, even the Mamiya thing, I understand there are more white people at Madison Square Garden trying to help Mamiya not get killed in Pennsylvania as opposed to black people. So we're not really paying attention to how we can really help each other, but we can, and that's the only way we're going to stop the onslaught. We've got to start looking out for each other. Brothers have got to stop calling sisters all the nasty names and start being good to sisters, because sisters are growing dicks right in front of our face because brothers are not taking care of business. And this is embarrassing because we don't need our women to grow penises. We don't need our women to be men. We need our women to be women. They have been the greatest women on the planet Earth since the beginning of time. Why do we need to have them be men today? And then they celebrate the whole freakiness with a RuPaul character on TV. So now we got a lot of brothers that have no idea whether or not being a man is cool or being a woman might be even better. So we got this confusion going on because the so-called dominant society is confused, and they've been giving us all of their viruses, all of their diseases. Every little germ they get, they send it to us. They get a mosquito to bite their butt downtown. We got the mosquito uptown biting our butts because they sent it uptown. I mean, they put it on the train. I mean, it's like everything that they got, we get. It's very unfortunate that we have to live in such close proximity to somebody that's so germ filled. And the truth of the matter is, we unfortunately believe in a lot of the things that they say, and we don't believe in the things that we say. We don't believe in what we're about, and consequently, the power of who we are is totally diluted because we don't believe that we've got power.
You know, we're going to give the young brothers and sisters here a chance to ask you some questions. But apropos your comment about how women are forced to, quote, grow dicks, I remember a poem that you wrote called Gash Man. And, you know, it struck me as interesting that you would convey what you talked about in the manner that you did. I'd like you to share the genesis of that poem with our audience here.
Gash Man was a poem that I wrote. Actually, it started with Mary Baraka. Mary Baraka and I were together. Mary Baraka, some people know him as Leroy Jones, but he's one of our grand poets here in America, revolutionary poets. And he and I was sitting in a car in Newark, New Jersey, and I was talking about something. Everything was serious at that time because I was like nouveau black. I was newly aware. So, I mean, everything black, I was like right on it. So we were talking about something black, and I saw his eyes. They went off of me onto somebody on the street. And I looked at what his eyes were following, and it was a sister with a nice body. And, of course, you know, she had great behind. And so Mary was watching us. And I said, yo, you're not looking at me, man. I'm talking to you. What you doing? You're looking at the sister. I said, you're a gash man, like that. And he said, whoa. He said, if you don't use that line in the poem, I'm going to use it. Gash man was born then. Gash man comes out of the fact that here is a brother that, and this is how I defined it in the poem. It starts out very sensual. It feels so good. Ooh, it feels so good. And you tickled, and she swallowed, feeling good. Sweat tickled down your back while your revolution was being dug out of your wax-filled ears. And then I go into this whole thing about where I describe this scenario of the whole kind of a sensual act, and then it goes to a whole thing. And she said, come on, Daddy. And you came. Every day you came. You got beyond horny. You are now a gash man. Now, if we look at a sister from one perspective, we see that the vagina is the place that we come through. This is like heaven for some men who are straight, I suppose, all right? And maybe for the ones that aren't, too. But the fact is that this is heaven. Now, for the man that does not see the pride and the respect of a woman and sees her as a tool, something to just abuse, then that's a gash. And he's a butcher. His penis becomes a knife. And every time he runs up on us, he's just trying to cut her up. He ain't trying to love her up. He's just trying to stab her with his penis. And he's looking at it like that's like instead of walking around with a precious jewel in his pants, he's walking around with a big old butcher knife in his pants, waiting to yank it out and gash your sister. So that's the definition of gash man. And I said bleeding from corner to corner, stoop to stoop, bed to bed, and gash to gash. Same song yesterday, same song yesterday. Gash needs man, no experience necessary. And so, you know, I think that you all got the idea.
Well, you know, about a month ago, I had a conversation with Mr. Richardson. And in this conversation, he was lamenting the fact that, unfortunately, some brothers here at Wadley were bragging about the notches that they had.
Gashmen. Huh?
Exactly. They had gotten over in some sisters, and it was like, oh, I got another notch in my belt. Yeah. And one of the things that he said to me, and it's one of the salient memories that I have about that conversation, is that he wanted to try and do something or involve young people in some kind of conversation that would let these young brothers know that that isn't the way that you need to look at a sister. Right. She isn't just someone who is a vagina on legs.
Right, right.
And that conversation stuck out in my mind because I too have thought about those things.
Right.
What can we as black men, specifically in Wadley, what can we as black men do to try and help young brothers realize that, you know, your penis isn't a butcher knife, as you put it.
You're right.
And we should try and relate to sisters in a holistic kind of a way.
You know, the poetry has a lot to do with that, and you know, we start writing poems that talk about those things that are important and defining love as what it really is supposed to be, and let's not play sex up like it's the all and everything. This is one reason why I did this recent. I made a cameo on the CD of Dead Prez, and the piece that they do is the piece that I'm on is called Mind Sex, and the only reason why I'm on that piece is because we were in the studio. I was there to do something with them, but we were in the studio and I'm listening to this piece. The music was working, and then the sister's voice was working real well, and then the Mind Sex, when it says we don't have to take off our clothes, let's have a good conversation. I said, whoa, wait a minute. I said, this is different. I love this. So as it went on, there was a whole track with some music and no lyrics. So I just started kicking some lyrics, and the brother said, "Yo, can you put that down in the studio?" I said, "No problem." So we're in the studio, and that has become, after I guess their single, it's bigger than hip hop. I think Mind Sex is the next piece that's getting a lot of play, but it's dealing with sex, but it's dealing with from another perspective, because we've been Little Kim down, and you can't get no more raunchy and gut bucket than that. And so, you know, and there's always been somebody to like just take us down to the very nastiness of it. And this thing called sex should not be nasty. I mean, it should be the cleanest thing that you ever do. Or else why bother? Else you asking for trouble, because it's so intimate. It's got to be clean, and we've got to clean up our acts. We're destroying the most precious act known to man, the greatest communication known to men and women. We're destroying it by playing silly games. So the sacredness of that is dead or is dying, and consequently everything that revolves around that becomes very cheapened too.
You know, it's significant that we're having this conversation about how we should relate to women in light of the fact that Sunday will be Mother's Day.
Yes. Yes.
And every woman is potentially a mother.
Absolutely.
And consequently, they should be viewed and looked at a certain way.
Even the women who don't have children. And we need to recognize that, because, you know, some people, because we know some women who have had some children who are not mothers.
Precisely.
And you got some women who have never had any children who are fantastic mothers. I mean, just because God has made it possible for a woman to procreate, put a baby out, the mother thing starts. It actually starts when the child is in your system, but once that baby comes forth, I mean, there's a whole nurturing piece that's got to take place, and it goes on and on. It doesn't stop when you get 21. Say, okay, you're 21, get out. You don't need any more nurturing. We need nurturing all of our lives, and that's why we got to be good to each other. That's why I like when I go to places down south, for example. You know, it gets tiresome sometimes. You walk by Mr. Brown, you say, "Good morning, Mr. Brown." All right, you go to the store, you come back, same day, you walk by him again. Now you don't say good morning because you said it before. No, you say good morning again. And if you don't say good morning, he's going to say, "You know, I saw your boy today. He ain't say nothing to me. I spoke to you 15 times. Well, the 16th time you didn't speak to me. What's wrong with you?" It becomes a problem.
You know, there's certain tribes in Africa where the male child has to go to his mother's hut and bow down to her.
Yeah, prostrate.
Exactly, before he can go about the day and do his thing. Mm-hmm. And I think we have to try and embrace that kind of reverence in some level. So I appreciate the fact that you're bringing that kind of clarity to this conversation here. I had a conversation also just today with Ms. Collins, the director of this piece that we're involved in here, and in that conversation we were talking about the fact that oftentimes when young people hear us talking the way that we're talking, they consider us racist. And she said to me, and I think she was queried by one of her students, and she responded to this query or this condemnation by saying, I'm not really a racist. I just love black people, and there's a difference, and you have to know the difference. How do you respond to that?
First of all, it's impossible for us to be racist, because racist is someone who has the power to implement racist activities.
Exactly.
And we don't have the power. We don't have the power to fire no white people because they're white. We don't have the power to stop any white person from coming to any school because they're white, whether it's a black school or integrated school. Doesn't. We don't have that kind of power. Racists have the power to, you know, like you can have a racist attitude about something, which means that you like if you don't like a particular race, you got this, and so every time you see them or have any kind of interaction with them, you may be very nasty and rude to them. but it doesn't necessarily make you racist. We all have some prejudices in us, and that's real. And we, like some of us like spinach, some of us like spinach, some of us hate broccoli, some of us, we got different things that we don't like, and it goes with people too. I think that what we need to do is recognize a lot of times people like you and I will speak harshly of white folks because they have spoken so highly of themselves, and they've convinced so many of us of their greatness and their brilliance and their wonderfulness, until for us to get black folks to even see some semblances of anything that makes sense, we got to tear white folks down first to build a black person up. It's like, would you believe that blonde hair is a deficit? Would you believe that blue eyes is a deficiency? No, man, I don't believe that. It's got to be something special. No, it is a deficiency. Blonde hair and blue eyes is a deficiency if you look at it biologically. But you tell black person that to say, why are you being racist? It's the truth. It's a deficiency. It's not like something happening. It's recessive. It's not good. It's like somebody that, it's like I say white folks correct me because they look like unfinished furniture. They missed out on some stuff. They didn't get the painting. They didn't get the color. They want the color. We think, well, I wish I was white, and because they've promoted themselves so much over the years as this white thing, this great whiteness is something important. The fact is, and they hate, and white people hate us. They do not hate us. White people have never really hated us. White people are envious of us. They wanted what we got. They want that color. They know that color is the joint. They know that's the deal. They want some of that juice. They want to be able to stand at a bus stop waiting for a bus and just bop their head in rhythm to some music that they don't even hear. I mean, they want to do that. They wonder how can these kids jump double dutch? What kind of special feet do they have? What kind of special hands and feet can make them fly with a basketball and spin around and take a break and then throw the ball in the basket with their left hand? I mean, it's ridiculous. We can do all kind of fantastic things that just entertains them and makes them very angry that God left them out of that pot. He didn't give them that ability, and we've got that. So when we talk about the abilities that we have, and that's my whole thing, and if Ms. Collins is of that mind, and I love her to death, because we must be about promoting who we are. We've got to, just like I talked about the house. If I had $1 million, which I don't need $1 million, I don't want that kind of attention. I just want to be comfortable. But if I had that kind of money, you come to my mansion, you're going to recognize you're in a house by a black man from the minute you push the door. The doorbell might be red, black, and green. I mean, because it's going to have some of my flavor. We're not trying to, well, I'm into everything. I'm into all people everywhere. I mean, we are all multicultural. Black people cannot help but be multicultural. How many different slave masters screwed our mothers on how many different levels? I mean, we don't know what kind of, there must be some Irish someplace, some Jew someplace, of course some Native American someplace, maybe there's an Asian guy somewhere. I mean, there's a bunch of different things happening with us, but what comes out is this black person, and that's who we need to recognize and love and exalt, and stop putting ourselves down, because we do that a lot, and we think somehow we've got brothers sitting in jail right now who will tell you out of their own mouths that they deserve to be there. They don't even imagine that they don't deserve to be there. And you say, well, brother, you didn't get 40 acres and a mule. Man, that ain't got nothing to do with nothing, man. That does have something to do with something. If your father or your mother or your grandmother, your grandfather had 40 acres and a mule, what do you think you'd be doing? You'd be talking about, man, how should I spend this next $10 million? What should I do with this? Damn, God, I already invested in this, I invested in that. Damn, I might as well buy an island or something. I don't know. I mean, we'd be talking differently. Instead of saying, yo, man, how can I sell this crack, man, make some money? Shoot, without getting busted again.
Wow.
Can we get them?
Yeah, exactly.
Get them
exactly.
Yeah. Because they sitting here chilling. It's cool. Like this is a two-sided thing.
All right. I was thinking. Do you think if you weren't a poet, would you be here right now?
If I were not a poet, yeah, I would be here, because I would be doing something that would have some poetic flavor, because that's my life. I cook also. I like to cook. It's like poetry to me. Mixing up stuff, and because first of all, you got to start with good ingredients. Same thing with a poem. You got to have a good theme. Then you can work with it. I play basketball. It ain't nothing like faking a brother that just looks at me because I got a beard, I'm gray in a beard, faking a young brother off his feet and then just taking that step inside and shooting a J. I mean, that's poetry to me. I mean, I love that. Or faking you out with my right hand, shooting my left. I love that. So my life is poetic. I think black people are very poetic. We do things in rhythm. We do things with flavor. And I know that I'm just a thorough black person. And I was raised by some thorough black people. And it's just the way that I'm dealing with my life. And I think that what has happened, the poetry aspect, has given me a road so I could see how to enhance what I'm naturally supposed to be.
We have a number of poets. Karen, okay. I'm sorry.
Yeah, okay.
Were you always like so pro-black, or did something in your life spike this?
You know, I was always pro-black and didn't even know how pro-black I was because my father kind of set it off. My father, when Sammy Davis Jr. married Mae Britt, she was a white girl. And Sammy Davis had changed his religion from being whatever he was, Christian, Baptist, whatever, to being a Jew. And then he married Mae Britt, and he came on TV on the Ed Sullivan Show one night. Ed Sullivan Show was hot. Black folks watched the last 15 minutes of the Ed Sullivan Show because you knew there was going to be a black person on. And so that last 15-minute segment, my father turned the TV off. He said, "We're not watching Sammy Davis. He's a backslider. He married one of them." And I didn't understand that. But I know I didn't have any real love for white girls because I knew them. I lived in my community. Now, when you're not in a community with white people, sometimes we might mystify it. You might say, "Well, maybe the little white girl got something going on," you know. And you might have, you know, you might just not know, and you might have to go there to find out. But when you're raised around them and you see them and they ain't got no juice and you see everything, it's like it's no mystery anymore. So I didn't have, and then when I went to school, I went to camp, I was around, and there was a thing in my house. It was just like an unwritten law that you had to love yourself, and that you don't come in this house with no white person. I mean, you got white friends or whatever, but you don't make them like your main ace boon coon, so to speak. And that's the kind of expression that we used to use. So when the movement happened, when Martin Luther King was killed, I think that's when I went totally radical, because my folks have always accommodated some white folks on some level or another, but I became a real super black revolutionary, because here this man was trying to get white folks to like just stop being evil and let's come together and eat together and work and live together and play together and let's love the Lord together. And they shoot him down. I couldn't understand that. I went off behind that. So that's what turned me into a super black guy, if there's such a thing. But I think it just made me focus more on my folks. And it's very interesting because as we speak, where do I live? I live on Columbia University's plantation. My friends tease me. They say, "You say you live in Harlem." And say, "Man, you don't live in Harlem, you live in White Harlem." But every white person in that building knows they don't ask me for tea. They don't come ask me for sugar, for salt, for egg, nothing. They probably have stories about this black guy that lives in apartment 41. But they know that if I see them coming, I won't slam the door in their face. I'll hold the door. But you better say thank you. I will treat every human being around me like a human being until they act otherwise.
You know, this brainwashing is so egregious, and I want to cite an example before we hear the next question. When we oftentimes think of Jews, we think of European Jews. But if you know who the original Jews were, you will know that they came out of Africa.
That's right.
In fact, the Limbas, a tribe that lives in what is now Zimbabwe and Mozambique and parts of South Africa,
original Hebrews.
They were the original Hebrews, and they were the descendants of the Kohanim.
Right.
The Kohanim were the descendants of Moses' brother Aaron.
That's right.
But when we think, at least when I grew up as a kid, when I thought of Jews, I thought of somebody white.
You're right.
But that's another lie. That's a good example of how egregious this brainwashing is.
Right. We know what you need to know. What we need to always recognize. If we understand this, then we'll be straight. Civilization started in Africa, and civilization includes reading, writing, math, everything. Everything. Wearing something to smell nice, doing something with your hair, eating food with seasonings, cooking food, setting the table, the alphabet, everything. So there is nothing that this white boy can introduce to us that's new to us as a people. We invented everything, to the point where the things that we've literally invented in this country that we don't get any credit for have just been totally just snatched. Lewis Latimer hooked up the light, but Thomas Edison had the federal contract, and so Lewis Latimer we don't have no bill that we pay to Latimer's family. Nobody knows nothing about Latimer. Nobody knows anything about Jan Metzeliger, who hooked up the shoe machine. I mean, there's so many things. Benjamin Banneker designed Washington, D.C. And these things we have to learn in the month of February, because that's what they've allotted for us, time for us to talk about these things. When these things make the world go round, these things that we do have helped everybody live and breathe and have a more comfortable life on a lot of levels, because we're creative people. So it's just, and we would give credit if there's a white boy that comes to Rucker Park during the summer and he jumps up and he spins around 360 and he slam dunks the ball with his foot, brothers are gonna talk about it. We're not gonna say I ain't see it. We're not gonna do that. You say that white boy can play. we give credit. Ain't got no problem. We got, if there's a white girl that can triple Dutch, forget double Dutch, sisters are going to talk about it. Say, man, that white girl, she can dance with 3 ropes going at the same time. She's bad, because we're not afraid to do that. We're dealing with a people who are scared to death to say it. Y'all are great. And that's all they're supposed to do. Right now, they could take the blimp, take all the blimps that they got, all the little Goodyear blimps, and put them up in the sky and say, black folks, we lied. Y'all are great. You are the greatest people on the planet Earth. We lied. Please, just go ahead and be your great selves. We're going to stop bothering you. We're going to stop harassing you. Just be great, because that's who you all have always been. But as long as, even if they said it, if we don't believe it, it still doesn't make any sense.
Having said that, one of your poems, and you have to correct me if I'm wrong, but it talked about an eagle being in Africa amongst chickens.
Oh yeah. Well, it's a piece. The poem is if we only knew. But and the deal is that there's a parable that I hint at in the poem about the eagle and chicken. There's this parable that was told to me a long time ago about comparing black folks to eagles or to an eagle. So you got this chicken yard, and y'all can just imagine there's a chicken yard, and there's a bunch of chickens, a bunch of Purdue chickens running around, and there's this one big black chicken that ain't really a chicken, is an eagle, but he's been raised with the chickens, and so he's been eating chicken feed. And it's funny because his beak is too big, but he still is trying to eat the chicken feed, and the other chickens are much smaller. And when he gets up on the roost, they mad because he's taking more space because he's bigger and he's trying to fit, and they can't really fly. They flap a little bit. They raise up about 3 feet, and he's got these big wings, and so he just flaps a little bit and he raises up about 3 feet too. But then one day this other eagle, bigger than him, comes up on the roof of the barn and says, yo, psst, psst, you're not a chicken, you're an eagle. You can get out of there. If you just flap your wings a little harder and stretch them a little wider, you would just raise up out the chicken yard. Come up here with me. I can't do it. He complained. He couldn't do it because he had been trained. He'd been programmed to be in the yard. He says, man, listen, there's some berries up on these trees up here that are much more tasty than that chicken feed. The big eagle up on the roof tried everything. And one day, he started flapping his wings. And he realized he could rise up above those other chickens. And he flapped him a little bit more, and he rose up on the roof. And eventually, I'm just cutting the story short, he decided to fly away. But the fact is, I have a piece that just, since I gave you the parable, if we only knew what we could do, we stop fussing and fighting and feeling blue. If we only knew that we have juice cause of an African connection that we can't cut loose. If the light was on in our minds, we wouldn't diss ourselves so much all the time. We stop and realize without disguise, we've got the power to change what's before our eyes. Where there is poverty and misery, we'd bring hope, joy, love, and security. There wouldn't be no need to lock your doors at night, because no one lives in the dark and everyone sees a light. If we only knew what we could do, if we only knew how bad we are, we'd make the sun disappear because we're the brightest star. And if you feel the strength, then help those who are weak, then we'll be stepping to the rhythm like Malcolm speaks. So you thought you were a chicken and your butt was made for kicking. You've been running around with your head hanging down, looking for chicken feed in this city of greed. Open up your eyes. Don't you know you can fly like an eagle to the sky, much higher than high? You don't need no crack, smack, a patty, whack, and all the bones from that dog, you can give them right back. If we only knew what we could do, we'd stop fussing and fighting and feeling blue. Just like we cut our hair in an African style. We show rich royal treasure every time we smile. Some time ago, we just didn't know that we had the power to make the whole thing go. Motivated, educated, with a power generator. Need to own the joint instead of working as a waiter. If we only knew what we could do, if we only knew how strong our will, no matter what's been done, how souls can be killed like the sun and the moon and all the stars above. It's a natural thing for us to share our love. We're a healing force in a world of pain, trying to use common sense where life is insane. If we could recognize just who we be, we take control of our lives and live with dignity. If we only knew what we could do, if we only knew.
As I was saying earlier, there are a number of poets here today, Zanita, Sarita, Michelle, and I wanted them to be here to meet you, and I'm sure that they would like to ask you some questions.
Yes, please. Yeah, because my time is running out too, because I have to get my car and stuff, and it's hurt a little bit right now. Okay. So please, but just please ask me. Don't neglect the moment.
I don't really have a question. I'll just wanted to say I've never met nobody in this little bit of time that motivated me so much.
Wow. Ooh, you make me proud. You make me feel good. Thank you, baby. Thank you. Thank you very much. Well, you know, I tell you, personally, you'll motivate me. You know, because it's like, you know, when people, like when the brothers sisters say, I feel you. Well, that's what I'm all about. I'm just one big feeling. And if you can't feel me, if I can't feel you, we ain't getting along. And that's very basic. You know, I can be cordial and nice to you, and I can say, you know, when you sneeze, I can say, God bless you, but it ain't going beyond that. You know what I'm saying? The fact is that, so, and the one thing I love about young people is that I still feel like a young person. You know, I still feel the youth in me, you know, and I don't need to fake it, you know, because, like, you know, there are people that when they start getting older and their hair changes colors, they want to dye it and they want to do everything in their power to try to look like what, you know, they're not necessarily. When I think that that's wrong, because the looks come from within, and no matter what you look like on the outside, that's altered by what's happening inside. Because you may go ahead to someplace and get your face all hooked up and look just purty, and just have a nasty heart, and all people see is an ugly sucker. You know, they don't really see all that purtiness, you know, because something else is coming through. So I'm truly motivated by you as well, and you'll keep me alive. I mean, all the young folks I run into, and I never really know if I'm going to be accepted. I mean, and people think, oh man, he's confident, he know. I don't know that, because everybody's got their own agenda, and I'm not sure, but I come with faith, and I come with my heart in my hand, and if somebody steps on it, well, I can fight, but basically, I look forward to honesty and faith.
Sunita?
I mean, I was trying to get like one specific question together, because it's like, I've never really had anybody. I mean, I like people like Maya Angelou.
Mm-hmm.
I really did like Erykah Badu when she came out, and you know, all the older, you know, black speakers and black things. But it's like, I mean, nobody ever actually made me, you know, feel that proud, you know, to be black. And like the short amount of time that we've been talking, you know, it's like you just came out with one thing after another, and it wasn't just something that, you know, that you could tell that you heard somewhere. It was just like, you know, a lot of stuff that, you know, is genuine, and that's very, you know, that's very inspirational. But one thing that I did want to ask you is that you had mentioned earlier that Malcolm X, you know, that you were very for Malcolm X back in those days, and I wanted to know if a lot of the things that you write and if a lot of the things that you feel in any way stem from, you know, Malcolm X. Yes,
definitely. Malcolm X represented that second principle of Kwanzaa to me, Kuji Shakalia, self-determination, and I'm a real self-determined kind of guy. You know, I mean, like, I remember when I was in high school, I went to all boys high school, and I deliberately went to all boys high school because I like girls, and girls like me, so that was a problem. I wasn't going to get anything done if I had gone to any school with some girls, because I mean, girls know how to excite brothers real easily, and I mean, they don't even have to say nothing. So I went to that. That was one. So that was, my mother even said, "Wow, are you really serious?" I said, "Yeah." So that was my self-determination piece started really happening. I started recognizing that I needed to really take charge of my life and really not let anything distract me from the goals that I set. So Malcolm, when you know, and that's, see, the difference between Malcolm and Martin is so crystal clear to me, because see, Martin, everything, he was born with everything. I mean, his mother was a teacher, his father was a preacher. He didn't have to know poverty. Everything was cool. We graduated from high school at 15. He was super smart. You know, he played baseball. You know, it was just, I mean, he could have been a white guy. I mean, based on how he, you know, he grew up. He didn't come through any real rigorous type of situations. Why I love Malcolm is because he went through the whole trip. I mean, he was Malcolm Little, and that's so significant because he was little then, and that's his name. Then he went through the gangster piece, Detroit Red, you know, where he was really trying to find himself. You know, I mean, I was no gangster, but I think I stole something from a department store one time, you know, and I got busted. It was silly, because it was so silly, because I remember I went to the department store, and I was like maybe 50 or something, and it was Maze out in Queens, and I went in one size, and I went in and took the pants, and I took them in 2 pair of pants and 2 sweaters, and went to dress and put them on underneath the pants that I had. So I came out looking about 60 pounds heavier than I was. And so the lady said, "Excuse me, I think you have something that belongs to us." And my mother, she said, God, that's so stupid. I mean, I didn't get a beating for that because that was so stupid. I mean, I mean, it was just crazy. But I always had a self-determination like that. And then, and Malcolm I could relate to because he went through changes. And then I did get incarcerated for taking some money from the Grand Dragon of the Klan. I'm very proud of that. That's nothing that I'm ashamed of. Again, that was determination because when I started Last Poets, I felt like being a Last Poet was really not enough. I had to do something. I wanted to get directly involved. I wanted to squeeze somebody's throat. I wanted to get involved in this struggle, in this revolutionary movement. So I felt the place to be would be down south because that's where the Klan was still reigning supreme. And the idea that there's a group of white men in this country dedicated to hanging black people whenever they felt like it and whenever they feel like it, I still think that's a great insult. And I don't think that that's right for us to just sit back and say, well, that was then and this is now. It's still happening. These folks are still alive. They're just getting ready to have another march in New York in another month or so. These people are crazy. They're recruiting all the time. So my whole thing was, I'm going down to kick some butt. And that's what it was all about. And then I got into this serious African mode, so I couldn't wear any cracker clothes. I had to wear only African clothing. And if you were in my organization, you only could wear African clothing. So I've gone through a number of self-determination trips that would definitely mirror Malcolm because every single phase of Malcolm's life, he was thoroughly it. When he was Detroit Red, he was a real gangster. When he went to prison, they called him Satan because he was mean and he had that red hair, but he was real serious and he was really Satan. And then when he got his name Malcolm X, he really became Malcolm X. He was the best of the ministers that Elijah Muhammad had. And then when he transformed from there to El Hajj Malik El Shabazz, he was really that. So I appreciate the stages, the evolutionary stages he went through are definitely as a role and a model for myself and for many brothers. I tell the brothers when I go to Rikers Island, if you're in Rikers Island or you're in any other penal institution, the only thing you should be there for is to get your Malcolm X degree. That's it. You're not there to miss your girl and tell lies about what you're going to do when you get out, because we know that's a lie.
Do we have time for one more question?
Yeah, one more question.
Okay, Michelle.
Come on now. I heard you're a poet, and I heard you know it.
I think I have two comments and a question. And I'm going to sum it up like this. First, you mentioned Little Kim, and I think that I love Little Kim. Why? Because she expresses the way she feels, and for a long time, we didn't have a female that could come out and say, look, I suck a dick. I love to suck dick. I love oral sex. But for years we had males. I mean, somebody like Jadakiss, who I love. In almost all his songs, he say something about a woman, and express the way he feel about eating this and sucking this, and it's not a problem. And it's like a lot of male rappers that express how they feel in that way, and no one ever mentions them. But like for the past 2-3 years, Lil Kim is all people have been mentioning as that female role model who's giving females a bad name. But what about all these guys? It's never nothing bad when a male says it. I just want to say I love Lil Kim, and I hope she keep doing what she's doing.
Do you know why Lil Kim is being besieged by these comments? Do you have any idea?
Oh yeah, because of the things she says.
But not just the things she says. Why a female that says those things would get harassed more than a man? Do you have any idea?
Of course, because it's looked at like, oh gosh, she's a woman. How could she dare? She didn't say that, and we're supposed to be dainty and.
No, it's not that you're supposed to be dainty. Our whole civilization is built on you. Men have been known to be dogs since the beginning of time, and we cannot excuse men for being dogs, but that's a part of history. And the reality is, if we're going to have anything on this planet worth saving, the women have always been the saviors for that. And that's just the way life has been. I don't care what culture, what religion, what ethnicity. Little Kim and the brothers like her, we don't need that. I work in schools. I work with 4th graders and 3rd graders, and when they want to be like Little Kim, for a little 4th or 5th grader or 3rd grader to talk about sucking dick, it's totally insulting, embarrassing, and out of order. It's totally out of order. And the reality is, I appreciate your honesty. I appreciate you wanting to see women be honest and straightforward. And all that. There's some things that we don't need to say. It's not being dishonest. It's just some things we need to keep at home. I don't want to see people kissing on a screen. to be perfectly honest with you, because it's personal. It's between your lips and his lips, or her lips, whichever lips you like. I don't want to see a lot of things that we're putting on exhibition right now. The fact of the matter is, we are battered people, we are hurt people, and we're disunited on a lot of levels, and we don't know where we're going. And when you get somebody to get pumped up like a little Kim in a world where image making and image seeking is a paramount thing, it's a problem.
Who gave her that? Like,
the industry gave her that. The industry knew exactly what they were doing. They knew. There was no black person that did that. These are white folks that simply said, yes, this is what we want to sell. Just like they did it to Tupac and he's gone. They did it to Biggie, he's gone. They are controlling us with our own words.
Okay, for Little Kim, I had this friend, and I'm walking with him, and he saw Little Kim on the magazine. He said, "Oh, Little Kim," and he opened the book. He said, "I'm gonna get this magazine." This was like a year and a half ago. He was like, "She has on jeans. She's dressed. I don't want this." Just like that. And I looked at him. I mean, a lot of males, black males at that, they take it to that. I mean, you're saying this, but
yeah, we got people that are base, baby. We got people that are on that base, and it's up to you. At that point, you should say to that brother, elevate your mind, brother. That's all. That's where the sisters come in. When y'all can give the dialogue, as opposed to, because a lot of brothers will pull you down to the bucket of total shit and watch you drown in your own puke and bow and laugh at you because it looks like it's fun. They're not concerned about the reverence of the female or the reverence of themselves or the reverence of a people. That's not a concern. For those of us who have still maintained and have not lost our minds, we've got to try to save the minds that are still being able, that we can save. I'm sure, I mean, I'm not sure, but I don't think you want your little daughter, if you have a little daughter talking about saying the things that comes out of Little Kim's mouth, I want to suck a boy's dick, because there are little girls now in the elementary school, 1st and 2nd grade, who are talking that talk, and that's becoming a problem. And we're killing, if dick sucking is a righteous thing, then let it be a personal, righteous, sacred act that doesn't get promoted. We don't need, if you feel your mouth should belongs on a dick, that's something that you decide. That's a personal thing. It's nothing that needs to be put on exhibition. We don't need to advertise that. And the brothers don't need to be talking about sucking no coochie. They out of order too. We got a lot of brothers that are out of order. Matter of fact, that's what's caused.
No one mentions that though.
Well, no, we do. No, I mention it. I mention it. I mention it. Don't ever say that no one does, because I do. And there are a lot of brothers like me that do. And I'm always on the circuit. And I'm the brother that would get up on the train and tell the brothers and sisters to hold it down when they're cursing too loud, and the older sister listens to them. I don't care if they got a gun. Shoot me. Shoot me. If me telling you to shut your face, saying nasty stuff in the presence of an older sister, I'm the brother that tells our brothers and sisters walking up and down the street that you got to keep your conversations to yourself. You don't have to tell everybody that you was fucking Jack up in the roof on so-and-so street the other night. Everybody don't need to know. We have gotten silly with this attention thing. I don't care how many dicks Lil' Kim likes to suck, fuck, or do whatever she wants to. We don't need to have it advertised. That's my concern. We're advertising the wrong thing. And if she's doing it because men are doing it, you heard this before, and I know you have. 2 wrongs don't make a right.
Right. I didn't say she was doing it because men are doing it. I'm saying men do it, and it's like, oh.
Little Kim needs to be put in check. We don't need a world of Little Kims. She needs to be put in check. And she needs to, just like, let me tell you something. A lot of people, I'm not just using Little Kim as she's a quite up in front right now, and we see her all the time. If I see another poster where she's squatting down like she's ready to take a horse's dick up her ass, I'm gonna die. It's killing me. It's killing me. I love my sisters, and to see my sisters in that kind of position, when that's what the white man wanted us to be from Jump Street. When he came to Africa and saw black women, that's all he saw. That's all he saw was a Little Kim. That's all he saw. He didn't see a queen. He didn't see some woman that was going to raise a nation. He didn't see a teacher, a doctor, a lawyer, a judge. He didn't see a healer. He didn't see somebody who could put hands on and change your life's destiny. He saw a Little Kim. He saw a hoe that he could do and have some children. And then, who was the worst deadbeat dad on the planet? The white man. Because what did he do with those kids that he had by the Little Kims of slavery? He didn't take care of them. He sold them into slavery. He sold them into slavery. So we got a whole history of madness, and I'm saying that we're decent people. I'm saying we're cool people. I'm saying if you want to be freaky, you can be freaky as you can imagine in the privacy of your own home. You don't never have to put it on TV. You don't never have to put it in a magazine. And ain't nobody gonna be upset about it. Ain't nobody gonna be mad at you on no level. And you could be looking at all the other magazines. Ooh, yeah, brothers like to watch and see a lot of things. And I'm not saying those brothers are cool either. But the bottom line is that we've got to change somewhere down the line. We've got to speak about those things that will bring changes to us that we can feel proud of ourselves and know that tomorrow is going to be okay. Right now, I have a friend named James Mtume who actually did the music for New York Undercover, and he's very famous for one particular piece he did called Juicy Fruit. That's a famous song that he wrote. And I ran into him at St. Martin's about 4 years ago. Well, we're good friends. I see him all the time now. But about 4 years ago, I was at St. Martin's, and I run into James Mtume, and I said, yeah, man, your cut is really hot, man. Juicy Fruit is song. He says, yeah. I said, who wrote the lyrics to that? He says, I did. I said, well, that's the only beef I got with you, brother. I said, that's the only beef I got. He said, what's your beef, dude? I said, I'm a last poet. Now, I've been slinging words at folks like hand grenades for a long time. You can't say, I'll be your lollipop. You can lick me everywhere, Juicy. I said, it's out of order. He says, I said, brother, you got little children. You got little girl children. I said, I was riding by the bus stop just the other day and heard a little girl singing that to a little boy. Now, what do you think they're going to do? Pull out a lollipop and start sucking it?
You know, this is a place where we're trying to separate the wheat from the chaff. We're trying to embrace the truth. Mr. Richardson has a comment before we have.
Yeah, and I got to go too because I'm
before we have to, okay, my brother.
Yeah.
Actually, it's a common question. It deals with the idea of, because it's a conflict that a lot of young artists are dealing with, experiencing these days, a conflict between art and responsibility.
Right.
And they feel that those are two exclusive things. As an artist, it is not my responsibility to worry about other people's children. They have parents. Their parents need to raise them. And if they don't like what I say on my record, then turn the record off, or don't buy the CD, or turn the TV off. And so that there's an absence of a sense that I don't have to be responsible. My role is to just say what I see or reflect my reality. And then it kind of, in a way, shields an artist from responsibility. And a lot of young artists today don't feel they should have the burden of responsibility because they see themselves as individual artists expressing themselves, and to do otherwise would dilute their art, and they wouldn't be true to themselves in their art form. Just want to know.
Yeah, that, you know, what you're saying is the very reason why the absence of a movement is a very unfortunate circumstance with us right now. Because during the time that I was getting ready to say a classic example. James Brown had come up with a song about "I Too Love America," and it was a real patriotic song. And it was during the heat of the '60s when we were getting blacker than blacker than black. Here comes James Brown saying something that's talking about, like, I want to get down with, you know, like, I want to be like the white stuff in between the Oreo cookie or something. I mean, it was silly. It didn't make sense. That song lasted for maybe about a week on the radio because black folks were so upset, and we were in the movement. We said, you got to go back, James. And he came back with "Say It Loud, I'm black and I'm proud." And nobody remembers the song that he did before "Say It Loud," because the people made him do "Say It Loud, I'm black and I'm proud," because he wanted to be an artist for art's sake and not an artist for responsibility's sake. So he was brought on the carpet. Now I understand what the sisters say. I understand what all these individual folks say. I talk with Buster all the time. I say, Buster, and I always tell Buster, I say, you know, why you act so crazy, man? He says, well, that's the only way they put me down. And I say, Buster, that's the only way they're gonna keep you down. If I acted crazy, because Buster, when you talk to Buster, you still talk to Buster. Buster's got a lot of sense. He knows everything. Yes, Buster knows everything. He's not stupid. He can act like it, but he knows a lot of stuff. But he's been acting crazy because that's how they've been putting him down. And he'll tell you that. That's his game. That's his front. That's his clown show. But that whole clown show is, what is it doing for us in terms of building self-esteem, helping us grow, helping us move to the next level? Some people don't feel the responsibility, but if you don't do that, then what do you have to look forward to? Buster got robbed himself in his own community, and the folks knew exactly what it was and said, yeah, and we know you got that. That's real gold. That's why we want it. Thank you very much. Just hand it over and give us the keys to the Jeep. Thank you. So that's what happens when we don't recognize that we've got to start being responsible for the growth and development of. I mean, I've had situations. I'm in all the communities, Bedford-Stuyvesant, Fort Greene, you name it. I mean, I haven't had any situations where brothers and sisters have treated me with nothing but love. So all I get is love in abundance.
Having said that, we give you love, and thank you for coming today, my brother.
Oh man, thank you. Thank you very much. And I hope I get a chance to come and talk with you all again and hear some of your poetry. I'd like to hear that. All right, thank you.